In 1888, Abraham LaRue, a retired person from the United States, came here to Hong Kong Island to start a church and a school. He was the first Seventh-day Adventist in all of the Far East, serving for 15 years. You're never too old to serve. Ask the Lord what you can do to serve Him today.
Just before He went up to heaven, Jesus gave us a command. He gave us a mission. Jesus said, "Go. Go unto all the world, telling them of His love." This is our mission. This is our global mission.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on Global Mission Snapshots. I'm Gary Krause. Every week on this program, we look at what's happening in the front lines of mission around the world. One of the biggest challenges facing us today is the growing masses of people living in the big cities of the world. Today I'll be talking with Rick Kajiura, Communication Director for Adventist Mission, and Rick will talk about exciting possibilities for mission with centers of influence. We'll also talk with Hans Olson about global mission work in Asia, and we'll visit a unique church in the country of Mongolia. But first up, let's go to Africa.
Mission hospitals were established with that really kind, generous, caring attitude, often on the part of individual missionaries who, we used to say they would take public transport to the furthest spot, get their bicycle out, ride their bicycle till the bicycle could no longer go. Then they would walk, and when they were exhausted and couldn't get any further, they'd say, "This must be the spot for the mission hospital." And they were set in very, very far-flung areas, and still to this day, even though very primitive, often provide a level of care that's totally unavailable to the people in those regions.
In 1950, the Seventh-day Adventist Church established a Shaka hospital in western Uganda. Built on a hill overlooking the small town below it, for 60 years it has served the people in this region of a country at times enduring through war and political strife. For the past 11 years, Adventist medical missionary Dr. Victor Valenzuela has ministered to the people of Ashaka.
I grew up in the church. I was born into the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but I never thought of myself as becoming a missionary. Of course, during my younger years, I was interested when I was reading the guide, and I could read about the stories about the missionaries, but I never thought myself of becoming a missionary. But God has His own ways, and so here I am,
More than 1/3 of the Ugandan people live below the international poverty level. In Ashaka, the percentage is even higher. But the staff of the Shaka Hospital are committed to serving as Jesus' hands to a community in need.
It's an experience that I will never exchange for another, for any other experience in the world. There's nothing like working for our Lord.
A large portion of the medical patients they see each day are infected with HIV and AIDS. The pediatric ward is full of malaria patients, yet the committed staff of Ashaka are saving lives and telling people of Jesus and His love for them, no matter how hard the circumstances get.
It's the joy of serving these people in this community, and doing it for the Lord. That's all that I can say. I have never felt that I'm tired emotionally or physically. We like doing it for the Lord.
Whether treating a child with malaria, attending a staff meeting, or simply enjoying the beautiful environment surrounding him, Dr. Valenzuela strives to use the gifts that God has given him for His glory and honor, no matter how difficult it gets.
I think sometimes there are moments wherein you'd like to do more, but because of the resources, the limited resources, you can't do much. So I think that's the toughest job that, Otherwise, me and my wife, we like working in this institution, and I can have it no other way except to be a missionary.
To further serve the community, Ashaka Adventist Hospital has established a training school to train laboratory assistants. Here, young people can learn skills they can use to serve their own communities. Students come from all over Uganda to take the courses offered at the hospital. They are taught by working professionals and are able to get valuable hands-on experience working in the hospital's labs. With the high number of HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis cases coming to the hospital, having a fully functional lab is vital. Students live in simple houses, and each Sabbath the local church on the hospital grounds overflows with students, doctors, nurses, and the Adventist community that has grown over the years. Often patients, if their conditions allow it, are brought to the church so that they can join the worship service. Ashaka Adventist Hospital has blossomed into a caring and spiritually nurturing oasis to the people of Western Uganda. Recently, the Health Ministries Department of the General Conference, along with health professionals from Loma Linda University and the Eastern African Division, paid a visit to Ashaka to evaluate the hospital and its facilities. Each department was examined, and staff were given the opportunity to express their feelings regarding the quality of care being provided to the community. A report was prepared and then shared with the hospital administrators and staff.
At the hospital that will go over these recommendations, and we want to encourage them to do that which they are doing well, to do it even better. So we take the appreciative inquiry. The appreciative inquiry basically doesn't go around and say, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. It goes around and says, you're doing thus and so very well. If you could employ the same enthusiasm and the same methodologies to what you're doing so very well, maybe to this program or another problem.
Another member of the team was Dr. Peter Landless, one of the Associate Health Directors of the General Conference.
We see at this hospital, which is now 60 years old, a service to the community of Ishaka, a comprehensive service giving obstetrics, gynecology, some surgical cover, also with a family planning clinic and HIV and AIDS outreach, a very busy outpatients department. As you can see around me, there are people willing to come in and out of this hospital. As we look at the challenges faced by the hospital, of course economics are huge. Nothing becomes cheaper, and maintenance of the plant is important. Provision of adequate facilities is very, very important, and many things need to be upgraded. And so we see that we have a mission here, the hands of God being our hands, demonstrating His heart. And we thank you as you contribute, as you continue to serve by your mission offerings. Thereby you have a direct hand in helping to get doctors, nurses, missionaries right to where they need it, where they can give the expertise and help that otherwise would not be here. So continue to give, to consider your stewardship as you hasten His coming and help people in the process.
And I like to think that the members in the pews around the world are also friends of our missionaries, and that they will support them with means and prayers and maybe little letters of encouragement, just to let them know that we are all in this together, whatever our particular role may be.
I'm glad to welcome Rick Kajiura, who works with me in the Office of Adventist Mission. Thanks for coming, Rick.
It's good to be here, Gary.
And we're talking about something now which is very exciting. We call them centers of influence for urban mission. Tell us what centers of influence are.
Well, centers of influence is something that Ellen White talked about, that we should have centers of influence in the big cities, reaching people every day where they are. You know, Homer Trecarton, who works in the Middle East, sent us a quote just the other day. I think he sent it to you as well, from a book. and it talked about how some people in a certain area, you know, they said the Christians came in and they built compounds and churches and expected us to go to them. And then he says, you know, this other Christian or this other religious organization came in, and they came in as traders, farmers, and they lived among us and worked among us, and now they're all following this other world religion. So, you know, it just shows that we can't just wait for everybody to come to us. We need to be where they are. We need to be meeting their needs so they'll trust us, come to know us, to like us, and then we can share what we believe that impacts our lives.
So Ellen White was talking about small centres in urban areas spread out that would connect Adventists with the community by connecting with their needs. And at the moment we're seeing lots of these starting up around the world, and I'd like to show us a video right now. And this video is of a different type of centre of influence that is actually a thrift store, but let's have a look at it.
In Copenhagen, Denmark, Seventh-day Adventists have opened a thrift shop called Happy Hand. This is not an ordinary shop. It is a center of influence. Here, employees are volunteers and profits are used to help those in need. The shop is beautifully decorated with recycled furniture. People who visit also find a place to sit down, listen to inspiring music, and connect with friendly Christians. Please pray for the center of influence in the heart of Copenhagen, where Adventists are following Jesus' method and bringing people to Him.
When Ellen White talked about centres of influence, she was talking about having things such as restaurants, vegetarian cafes, reading rooms, treatment rooms. Whatever the need is in the community, then we connect with those needs.
And it will vary from community to community, and so I think we need to understand the people in the community and what their needs are.
Yeah, now this is a concept that is actually catching a lot of excitement among church leaders. Let's have a look at a short video right now that shows the excitement among church leaders for this initiative.
Traditionally, Seventh-day Adventists are allergic to city evangelism. But Ellen White had been most emphatic in stressing the importance of urban ministry.
Ellen White has told us that when the cities are worked as God would have them, the result will be the setting in operation of a mighty movement, such as we've not yet witnessed. Part of that mighty movement is to plant centers of influence in the cities that are going to touch the lives of thousands of people.
Centers of influence are an opportunity for involvement. Centers of influence are mentioned about 88 times by Ellen White, where she indicates that we would have an opportunity to learn the joys and learn the sorrows of people in the cities.
I invite every single one of you, and myself, to be part of this effort to plant centers of influence in the cities of the world so that we can tell people that Jesus is coming soon.
So you see there, Rick, we're actually calling these Life Hope Centres.
Life Hope Centers.
So what's the idea of having this sort of branding?
Well, you know, when people go to some place and they like it, they go to another city or another part of town, they see the same logo and signage, and say, oh, I remember this, I'm going to go to this, I had a good experience. And so we're hoping that this will carry through, that there'll be a branding and a common theme in different places. So even though they may be doing slightly different treatments or whatever, or classes, that they will know that they can go there and get that same sort of quality of lessons.
Right, so we are starting to produce a whole range of different curricula for different projects, programs, activities, ways we can work with the community.
You know, the church for many years has done a lot of things with parenting, health, all of these things. And a lot of times it was directed out to the community somewhat, but a lot of it was internal. Church members would come in here, church leaders, do these things. We're collecting a lot of these things and editing them and putting really nice designs, PowerPoint, student workbooks, and making these available to Life Hope Centers so that they can have classes on a variety of subjects. So we're taking what was somewhat focused inwards and turning it outwards to help people all around the world in their communities.
For further information, where can we find that?
Well, you can go to AdventistMission.org right now for further information.
And we're also working on lifehopecenters.org.
We're working on lifehopecenters.org, and that will be for local centers to have their own website.
Good. Thanks for joining us, Rick. This really is an exciting program. It is something, You know, 100 years ago, Ellen White said that we have neglected the cities. It's now time for us to do something about that, to put Christ's method into practice, which I say so often, that we need to mingle, we need to show sympathy, we need to minister to needs, we need to win confidence, and then and only then we bid people to follow Jesus. Please pray for this initiative. My guest is Hans Olson, who works with me in the Office of Adventist Mission. Welcome, Hans.
Thank you.
Not so long ago, you visited the Northern Asia Pacific region.
Yes.
And you went to that big, huge country of China.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just rapidly growing population.
Right.
Tell us, what did you find there?
Wow, it's a big country, that's for sure. China, actually, we went up to northwestern China first, to a community where there was a hill church kind of up in the hills. It was actually, I think it was about 10,000 feet above sea level. 70 people live in this church. This village. Mm-hmm. Church at the top of the mountain. 2/3 of the villagers are members of that church, which has about 60 people. The remaining members of that church walk, sometimes 3 hours one way, much of it uphill. Steep hill, narrow little road, to go to church. Dedicated Christians. It was amazing to worship with them. They had a church choir that sounded as good as any large city church choir that you and I would have heard.
Okay, and then you went to a more urban area?
Yeah, we went to Nanchang, which is kind of in central China. Not as developed maybe as a Western city, but still a bustling town, and there's an Adventist church in that town. But then we went a couple hours outside and visited a woman who is planted 3 different churches. The first church was in a kind of a small property owned by the lady who she was renting a room from. And very modest church, but still a very nice church. And then she's planted 2 more churches in that area, so in about a 4-year period. So she's been very, very busy.
I was interested when you said she, because in China we see the leadership of women in planting churches all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of these women are caring for congregations with thousands of church members. So we know that we probably have maybe 400,000 church members in China. And we know that in some parts of the country they have greater freedom than in other countries, but we are just so glad to see the growth that's happening.
Right.
Now, you went from China, but you also went to a very different country, just a neighbor of Korea. Tell us about Korea.
Wow, Korea. Yeah, Korea is different. Korea is very high tech.
Yes.
And so that creates some interesting challenges for mission. But a lot of urban ministry going on there. There's the Central Seoul Church has started an elder ministry because it's an underserved group within the Adventist Church.
Elderly people.
Elderly people.
Yeah.
And they have a church just for them. They have a feeding program, a lot of community service programs to reach out to them, to give them a church family. Also, there's a homeless ministry. They feed maybe 1,000 people every Sabbath, fully funded by a church member from Seoul. $4,500 US a month. Program's grown so big that she and her local church can't even do it, and they have to have a group of churches, Adventist churches in Korea, come and help feed all of the people. They have so many people coming every Sabbath.
The church in Korea has historically been very strong,
Yeah.
and is helping mission work all through that region. What challenges do you see that the church is facing in Korea now?
The church in Korea, like many other places, is becoming secular, and so they have the challenge of young people staying in the church, and just continuing to grow. You know, as wealth increases, as technology changes, keeping people focused on the church and not distracted by the world around them.
So you also briefly visited Hong Kong,
Yeah.
where Abram LaRue, a woodcutter, just a layperson, started work in that area. Well, thank you so much, Hans, for joining us and talking to us about this challenging area. And the Northern Asia Pacific region is a huge challenge, a mission challenge. Just millions and millions of people, many of whom have never even heard the name of Jesus Christ. You travel in China and you see high-rise after high-rise going up, highways coming in, so many families who need to know about a God who loves them and Jesus coming to die for them. Next up, we're going to travel to another country within the Northern Asia Pacific region, to the country of Mongolia, where not so long ago we had absolutely no Seventh-day Adventist believers.
On a typical Sabbath, you can see members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church meeting in a variety of locations and structures around the world. They may meet under a tree in Mozambique, in a prison cell in Moldova, under a tarp in Mexico, or in a house church in Cambodia. It doesn't matter where you worship. What matters is that you are able to worship together as a church family. For Seventh-day Adventists in the country of Mongolia, worshiping on the Sabbath is still a new experience. The Adventist message was first brought to Mongolia in 1992, and the first members baptized in 1994. Today, there are a handful of churches and more than 1,200 members. They worship in traditional church buildings, in small school classrooms, and in traditional Mongolian houses called gers. From the exterior, you wouldn't think that a ger would serve as a spiritual home to Adventist believers. But once you enter the surprisingly warm hut, you are greeted by a young group of members. Very quickly, you will feel the warmth of the Christian love that lives in the hearts of these new converts. They open their Bibles and search for the truth that lives within the pages of thin parchment. Their faces light up as the young speaker talks of love and forgiveness, of hope, and a new beginning in Jesus. Your support of the mission work of the Adventist Church helps to spread the gospel of Jesus around the world. Just as Jesus spoke to his followers on the side of a hill, today, Seventh-day Adventist believers share the same message all throughout the world. Thank you for your prayerful support of mission.
If you enjoy inspiring stories of global mission pioneers, missionaries, and mission in general, then we would like to send you a copy of the Mission Stories for Kids DVD. If you live in North America, please call our toll-free number 1-800-648-5824 or visit our website and ask for the Mission Stories for Kids DVD or offer number 304. Don't forget to clearly state your name and address. Well, that's it for today's program, and I hope you've been inspired by what you've seen and what you've heard. From the countries of Asia to the cities of North America, God's mission work is still moving forward. So on behalf of Adventist missionaries and church planters such as Global Mission pioneers who are serving around the world, thank you for your continuing prayers and support for Frontline Mission. Until next time, I'm Gary Krause for Adventist Mission. God bless.
save us from our enemy, that he, the God of desert sand, would be the God of the promised land. What kind of love is this? What kind of love is this? That God would take our flesh and sin, be made like us so we could be like him. That he, our priest, would draw the knife and offer himself as our sacrifice. What kind of love is this? What kind of love is this? That God would do all that he can and yearn for us to understand. What kind of love is this? What kind of love is this?
Хаанчлалаа эсрэг босхгүйгээр энэ тэмдгийн өлсгөлэн болоод газар хөдлөлт болно.